live. Okay. We are live. Woo! And let's see if anybody else is here. Monica, Eric. Greg. Why? I guess you have to hit the button to turn your video on now. They made a few security changes here, so I didn't pay attention when I did it. I think I just clicked on it.
Yeah, I clicked no video.
And Brian, why is Monica taking so long to join? Oh, she just logged back in again.
Hey, Brian, how's that new baby?
She's good. Yeah. Pretty good sleeper so far, which has been good. And,
excellent.
Yeah, she's getting some good stretches at night. Nice.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good for the whole family.
Yeah, definitely. She's growing a lot too. She's she had her 1 month last week and she already gained like 2 pounds already. So
wow.
Yeah.
Good.
So far so good.
Mary Kay.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Great. So far. Early. It's early in the week, so.
Good night. Good night. Good evening, everybody.
Oh, okay. I'm like, where's Karina? Okay, Maureen.
We all set, Liz? It's 7 o'clock.
2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 6. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Before we start our Finance Committee meeting, I'd like to welcome this evening's participants, administration, the mayor and his administration, of course. Mike Sharp from the law firm of Squires, Patton and Bob, counsel, and Matt, Staniski, our municipal advisor. Police Chief Upperman, Lieutenant Shepard, and Monica Jordan, our community development planner. And of course, my colleagues, and Clerk Liz Westbrook. Okay, Bridget, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. The Finance Committee will start at 7:01 p.m. The first order I'd like to talk about is Ordinance 2034, the sale of series of 2012 bonds. Because we have some guests tonight to discuss that, so I thought that they could start us off.
Mayor or Director Single, would you like to start and give a little context before we jump in?
Yes, if that's okay, Councilmember King.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So I think most of you have met Matt Stasinski before. He's our public finance consultant. And Mike Sharp is counsel. Minnick mentioned is on the line. He's from the law firm Patton Squires and Boggs, Squires Patton and Boggs, excuse me. But so I know that this is something that has been on the radar for a number of years in talking with Finance Director Single. The bonds at the Gemini Center have, you know, they're going to be going up. The debt service is going to be going up over the next few years. So Greg has been working with Matt for a number of years and looking for opportunities to possibly refinance and to level out that debt to give us a little more flexibility going forward. We had met, I distinctly remember this, we had met with Matt in early March. I think it was maybe the Thursday or Friday, the 12th or 13th of March. We were going to have some legislation prepared to address this issue. And I think we had already talked about this with council. And then, you know, the pandemic really hit everyone hard. So Matt has continued to look at this opportunity, and the opportunity has presented itself again. So in my mind, Matt and Mike are the experts, but I'm surprised it has presented itself as quickly as it has. And so we, you know, think it's a good, as I mentioned earlier, chance to give us some flexibility with these payments. So I don't know if Greg would like to add anything well at this time. Thank you. I think he's muted.
Hold on. There you go.
Can everybody
Greg,
hear
you
me?
good?
Yeah, I can hear you, Liz. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
The mayor had basically all my talking points. We're just trying to match up our cash flows with the debt service. We believe that this will allow us to do that. We've been looking at this, as the mayor said, for quite a number of years, probably about 4. And at this time, this is the most advantageous period that we've had as far as looking at this over the last 4 years. So I'll just turn it over to Matt and Mike to expand on the conversation, but this appears to be a good time to move forward and refund the debt.
Mike, thank you, Director Single. Mike, if you don't mind, perhaps I could just walk through the handout that hopefully all of council has received. Good evening, council. As Director Single and the mayor mentioned, this has been on the radar screen for quite some time. And the quick overview is that the bonds from 2012, you can see in column A, the remaining outstanding bonds in column A. I've highlighted that which is callable in yellow. Those bonds are callable or able to be refinanced or retired in their entirety as of December 1st, 2022. As Director Single mentioned, we started looking at this a number of years ago, and the economics of this refinancing work better the closer we get to the call date. So we've been watching this and watching interest rates and keeping an eye on this. And with the rates that we saw earlier this year, the cash flows started to work much better. But let me walk through this quick synopsis if you don't mind. Basically, as I mentioned, in column A is the principal as it was scheduled to be retired when the bonds were issued in 2012. Of course, you retired bonds in years before 2020, but I'm showing you what remains. I'm showing you in column B the interest rate on the 2012 bonds for each of those bond maturities. Keep in mind, when the city sells their municipal bonds, they sell a amount by year by interest rate. Typically, that's how it's structured. So you'll see different coupons or interest rates for different years, and it's all designed to get the lowest interest rate possible when the city issues their debt. But sometimes that couponing or coupon rate, if you see the interest rate rather, reflects the investor sentiment and the price they're willing to pay to get the lowest possible rate for the city. Column C column C, my suggestion is to show you how the debt service is proposed to be paid back. This is fixed as of 2012. This is mandatory payments that are required for the next, from 2020, December 1st of 2020, on out to 2030. Just a reminder, the city pays interest twice a year, June 1st and December 1st, and it pays principal on December 1st of each year. So 2020 is unlikely to be changed as we don't have much time to alter that. You've been paying interest since December 1st of 2019 on those bonds, and that's likely already in the books, and there's very little you can do about 2020. But we do have the opportunity to alter the debt service in 2021 through 2030, as the Director Singal and the Mayor mentioned, to more closely align with the projected revenue stream that that is currently coming in for income tax. Keep in mind, these bonds were, when they were issued, were all to be paid back from income tax set aside from an increase in the income tax that was approved by the residents. And that the income tax is split between debt service and the operations of the Gemini Center. So we see this structure has an increasing debt service from 2021 and thereafter. And one of the first things Director Singal called me when he came on board with the city, he basically said, "Why is this structured this way? And who was thinking that this would be acceptable when they were originally issued?" And you'd have to go back to the mindset of 2024, 2023, 24, and 25. Of course, that's pre-financial distress of 2008, 9, and 10. NASA was still part of the city. There were pretty healthy projections around income tax, and the Gemini Center was in need of, we'll call it a certain dollar amount that was going to be raised to complete the project. And that was the structure that was identified at that time. And that seemed to be fitting of the strategy at the time. But things, of course, have changed. One thing to point out, when the bonds were issued with the opportunity to go out to 2035, but the city made a conscious decision to structure it going out to only 25 years, as opposed to, these bonds were originally issued in 2005, refinanced once in 2012, and the legislation before council today, or before council's consideration, is to refinance this again, but move from a 25-year amort to the statute authorized 30-year amort in order to smooth out the cash flows. And what I've shown in column D, E and F, column D gives you an approximation of where interest rates are today if they were to be issued, if those bonds were to be issued. That's just a summary of where they've been over the last week to 10 days, gives a rough approximation of, again, how each maturity may reflect the interest rate paid to an investor. The projected debt service using those interest rates approximates $1.3 million annually as of the current as of the current rates. That's column E. And column F was just for reference purposes. That's where we were earlier this year when we started giving, when the mayor and Director Singal started ramping up the contemplation to present this to City Council. We were a little bit higher as far as interest rates. So interest rates have actually improved over the course of 2020, amazingly enough, but that's largely due, of course, to the disruption in the economy and disruption to the financial system. And so interest rates remain very low. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone. But the thought being that hopefully they'll stay low in terms of short-term rates, but there are some concerns about 5, 10, 15, 20-year rates actually increasing over time. So the legislation before City Council is, we'll call it basically the opportunity to open up the window to refinance this debt. Doesn't obligate the city to do so, but it opens up the opportunity to continue to watch the market and get ready to refinance the market, or refinance these bonds, should council and everyone be in agreement to do so. with this revised structure of a longer amortization. Again, no obligation to do so, but as we saw what happened in February and March, we were poised to capture considerable, we'll call it an opportunity presented to the city at that point, and we lost it because of, at that point, in fact, during the course of the pandemic, the initial stages of the pandemic, interest rates skyrocketed for a 2 to 3 month, 4 month period of time, and since then have started to normalize and even look better. I'm going to hold off any other, seeing what questions we have, and just jump to page 2. I just wanted to point out that these bonds would have to be issued as taxable as opposed to tax exempt. That seems to be very popular, as taxable rates are outperforming in terms of yield to tax exempts. And I've just given a quick article that came out last Friday. But by the way, if I would search the bond buyer, I could provide 10 to 12 articles in the last 2 to 3 months that show the increasing demand for taxable debt. And in the last 30 days, I've put together a schedule there. I put together a schedule of taxable debt issuance, some new money, mostly refundings that have been completed, executed and completed in Ohio in just the last 30 days. So you see that this is very, we'll call it advantageous to a lot of communities, cities, schools, counties. In fact, Fairview Park Schools did a refinancing in 2019 of similar year bonds. They refinanced in 2019, the school district did, their outstanding 2012 and 2013 bonds, and are back at the table again this year and are working currently on a refinancing of the school's 2017 bonds on a taxable basis. So it's, whether or not they're tax exempt or taxable, the issue is these interest rates are so low relative to where bonds were issued in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and even 16, 17, that it's still advantageous to the city to proceed, or advantageous to all these issuers to proceed with the refinancing. And with that, I'll stop and see what questions they have. Council has, or the mayor, or Greg Single.
Council have any questions?
Hey, Greg, it's Sarah. I have a couple questions about this. The first one's kind of a general one. So we know that the majority of the debt service is paid for by the levy for the Gemini Center. Does that levy have an expiration date?
So the bonds are paid through the, as Matt said, income tax. So the income tax increase, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but the income tax rate increased from 1.5% to 2%. That half of that to fund the Gemini Center capital construction and the operation of the center. Is that correct?
Greg, I didn't catch everything you said there. There was a little disruption in your message, in your
Okay.
delivery. But I do believe you're correct. It was intended, the income tax was intended to fund the debt service and the operation of the Gemini, a portion of the operation of the Gemini.
Right, along with the property tax and fees generated at the Gemini.
That's correct.
So there's no chance that revenue source expires. I would never say one would dry up because we just don't know, but there's no chance that expires in the meantime. That money is, for all intent and purposes, solid right now.
Yeah, Sarah, the property tax is charter millage. It's one mill and it's continuous.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to know, so there is obviously time to refinance these if we're talking about wanting to call them or to do this prior to when the callable bonds come through, which looks like 2023. looking at these rates, I can't imagine the answer is yes. But if you had a crystal ball, do you foresee these rates getting better in the next year or staying the same? I'm just curious what the industry is thinking in terms of what interest rates will do over the next 2 to 3 years.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman, I'm happy to answer that, Greg. So much like the counterparts that you've seen issue debt, the expectation is that short-term rates will in fact stay low, and I think the Federal Reserve has been fairly transparent about this. Short-term rates will stay low through 2022. The challenge is what's going to happen to the longer end, and that's where we really have more bonds outstanding out 5, 10, 15 years, and those rates should naturally go up. So you've seen this rush to issue this debt for the, we'll call it capitalize on this opportunity, knowing that even though, and by the way, most of those bonds that were issued that have those refunding bonds that are shown on that list have call dates out in 2023 or 2024, very similar to your issuance, which is in fact shorter, it's 2022. So most of those folks have reached the conclusion, and it's a good question, what if we wait? What should happen? How could we benefit? And the answer is, keep in mind when we issue these refunding bonds, we take all the proceeds and we put them in an escrow account, and they pay off the old bonds until the call date, and then the new bonds, and then you start paying the new bonds immediately, though, starting in 2021. But all the old bonds are escrowed and paid, and they're paid till that call date. So the longer the call date, the more inefficient this is. Our call date isn't that far away, being 22. And again, as Director Singal mentioned, we've been watching this for 4 years, trying to get to this call date. And we just happen to have a wonderful opportunity with being close enough to the call date and having we'll call it the opportunity of these low interest rates. And can interest rates stay this low? You know, we've seen this happen, but it doesn't often last very long. And I'll say the expectations for this, we'll call it financial distress that we're in, seem to have at least more transparency around the Fed acting faster, the economies, at least we know what the challenges are, but the banking system, which was unknown 10 years, 12 years ago, in terms of the wherewithal to recover, the banking system is actually very healthy. You know, companies are struggling, there's no doubt, but there's been a lot of aid to that, and that should accelerate the economy's recovery. And in fact, if that's the case, interest rates should go higher. And we've seen that a little bit, and even the 10 and 20-year bonds on the Treasury side in the last month, that even though rates have gone a little bit higher and they peaked, they've come back down. They've managed to, you know, people are managing expectations. But I do expect rates to go higher over the course between now and December 1st, 2022, particularly on the long run, on the long end of the curve, meaning 10, 15 years, 20 years out there. So I'm sorry for the long answer, but there really is no short answer to that question other than yes, rates will go higher.
Thank you. The only other question I have is just to make sure I'm reading your spreadsheet right. So are column C and column F comparable? In that what I'm seeing is by refinancing, it cost us $1.1 million. Or am I reading that incorrectly?
No, you're reading that right. If you're looking at the totals, that's in fact correct. What we are trying to present here is what is the cost if we were to have proceeded in March of this year, or we'll call it April of this year. And in fact, the debt service, because you're going out another 5 years, is in fact higher on a cash flow basis. But what the industry does is they measure these refundings on a net present value basis, meaning you're going to capture quite a lot of savings in the early years of this cash flow, even though you're extending the cash flow. So the industry always, in order to keep everything comparable, no matter who's doing the refunding or who's structuring it, you measure this on a net present value basis. And for the first time in 4 years, we now have positive net present value savings out of this cash flow model that happened earlier this year, which is why we were trying to move quickly in February, March to get legislation before council, and then we lost the opportunity. But in fact, the net present value savings is better in column E than it is in column F. And you can see that we're relatively close in terms of overall cash flow, but we have improved even better in net present value savings.
Thank you very much for that explanation. It's always very enjoyable to listen to you talk about something that is not very enjoyable.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions from council? I just add one more point. So again, we've been looking at this for almost 4 years, and we've run many different scenarios. And our objective initially was to, if you look at columns E and F, our objective initially was to achieve a debt service payment, principal and interest of around $1.5 million to $1.6 million, and we were having a lot of difficulty achieving that years ago. As you can see now in column E, based on current rates, we're down to $1.3 million. So we're a $200,000 to $300,000 better than what we were, what our goal was back, 3 to 4 years ago. So this is a great time to take advantage of the market. Anything else for Matt or Mike?
Nothing further for me. This is Matt.
Mike, you have anything to add?
Unmute, Mike. Mike, you need to unmute.
So I was just saying that I'm actually your dream tonight. I'm the quiet lawyer, and in fact, I was the muted lawyer. So works out well for everybody.
All right, well, does anyone else have anything else about this ordinance? Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to put this on second read, and we'll keep it in committee in case anyone has further questions for the next time. Brian?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
I will vote yes. And Greg?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us today and for all that information. That was really very helpful.
Thank you, council. Thank you, Matt. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you again.
Thanks all.
Okay, next we'll go to resolution 2012, allowing the purchase of the police service weapon. Does anyone have any questions?
Is this pretty much standard to sell the weapon to a retiring police officer?
It is, the collective bargaining agreement allows for a retiring officer to purchase his or her service weapon, depending upon the circumstances relating to their departure from the police department. But since Chief Upperman is not a party to the collective bargaining agreement, it doesn't apply to him. So that's the reason for this legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Minnick requested this, and I think it was just because every other officer has the opportunity to buy his weapon, and the chief is not included in that, so he thought it would be a nice thing upon his retirement. Okay?
Yeah.
And go ahead. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask if we should, instead of in this, just have purchase a service weapon, if we should spell out what the service weapon is, if there's a serial number or type, whatever, rather than just have it so broad.
Well, I believe Lieutenant Shepard, you might be able to help me out on this. Isn't it pretty much documented what weapon the officer carries?
Yes.
Like his service weapon, if we went there and say, what is chief's service weapon, you would have documentation to show us exactly what he's carrying, correct?
We would, yes.
So I believe that would cover it.
All right. All right.
Well, congratulations on a long, great career, Chief. We'll miss you.
Thank you.
Unfortunately for the chief, based on this potential refinancing of these bonds, we don't have to charge him more than what the price is. So it worked out there for you, Chief. But thank you to Councilman Minnick for suggesting this and bringing it to our attention.
Pat, Mayor, I was going to ask is, since he is a retiring chief, would we be allowed to gift it to him or sell it for a nominal fee of $1 just to cover if there's any legality here? I mean, for a man who's served our city so long, I didn't know if that would be something that we would consider, since he's excluded from the collective bargaining, we're in a unique position. And because of his outstanding service to our community, I didn't know if it could be something that we would gift to him, or if we're required to charge him, that it would be a nominal fee.
Well, similar to the collective bargaining agreement, which allows somebody who's served for 25 years to pay $1 for the weapon, that would be the same terms for the chief.
Okay.
As a city, do we need any kind of special license to sell firearms? I was trying to look up today, like under ATF and things like that. So do we don't need any kind of special?
I guess I would have to look into that. And it's not an issue that's ever come up before. I don't, I don't think it should be an issue because many police departments do this.
Yeah, and I would imagine that Chief Upperman knows how to properly use and care for firearms. So, yeah, I wouldn't have any worries.
I'm not asking that, Greg. I'm asking if we are allowed to sell firearms to any person at all. I think that there are rules about who can sell a gun or not.
Well,
am I allowed to talk?
Go ahead, Chief, if that's okay with Council Member King.
Yes, of course, please.
You're not acting as a dealer, so anyone can sell a gun, period. The only time that it ever becomes necessary that things be structured and follow under certain rules is if you are a dealer in firearms, and then you would have to go through the background check. And I'm more than willing to go through the background check if you needed to, but I would think in my position that, there's no chance that I would not pass that. But as long as we're not selling it to the general public, it is only to police officers. And just for your edification, we did have an officer several years ago who we chose not to sell it to because of some issues in his employment. And we restricted that and made that a part of his separation, that he could not do that. So if there was a situation, and I mean, obviously I'm not the one that should make a decision on my own situation, but we're not selling to the general public. It is only police officers that have been carrying it for however many years already anyway. So I would think that would be proof enough that they're able to be entrusted to that.
And
Chief, isn't it actually true that as a retired officer, you don't have to even take a CCW class, that you get a card from the state of Ohio which allows you to carry a weapon? As a retired police officer?
I will get a retirement ID from the Fairview Park Police Department, and then I do not have to go through CCW as a retired officer. All I have to do is once per year come in, and I would qualify with the Fairview officers. We had several of our retirees from past years that came to our recent qualifications this week and last week to get their little sticker and certificate showing that they had passed the qualification course and thus are allowed to carry.
And I would echo what the chief said about we're not a dealer, and it's my understanding under the Code of Federal Regulations, there's a specific provision relating to the sale to retired police law enforcement officers. And so that from a federal standpoint, I think we're protected there. And then also, as the chief mentioned about the CCW, that's under Ohio law. I mean, that would, I think that would, shows that we're protected in that regard as well. It's a good question, Bridget.
Yep.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this was on first read. But was there a request to make this an emergency passage next read?
We received a letter, Bridget, passed on second reading.
All right, so then I'm gonna make a motion to put this on emergency passage for the next council meeting next week. Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
I will vote yes. Greg?
Yes.
All right. So the next one is ordinance 2032, amending the personnel of the police department. Chief Upperman, Lieutenant Shepard, do you want to speak to this at all?
Certainly, I would be willing to entertain specific questions, but just to give you a brief history of the reasoning behind it, I had passed on information to Councilman Minnick about a month ago when he inquired about this. And it kind of goes hand in hand with our switch to 12-hour shifts. We had been requested by the union to consider 12-hour shifts. It had been about a 3-year process that we were working on, trying to find a schedule that would work for us with the 12-hour shifts that would allow us to do so with no economic impact beyond what we already were incurring with 8-hour shifts, and still allowing people to have the ability to take time off without causing overtime. We had received a proposal from members of the police department that came up with a quite creative and workable solution to that problem. So it was agreed that we would have 2020 be the trial year to see how it would work and to work out any kinks on the process there. And in return, there were certain things that were spelled out to them that if we do go to permanent 12-hour shifts, which would be decided by my successor, which in this case is Lieutenant Shepard, who will be succeeding me in October. And he has stated that based on the way things have been working so far, that he's going to continue 12-hour shifts. And one of those requirements that I had set forth with the union was that we would be swapping 4 lieutenants, such as we currently have, to 3 lieutenants, and then increasing sergeants from 3 to 4. And the reasoning behind that was when we had a 3 8-hour shift schedule, we had a lieutenant as the shift commander for each of the 3 different shifts, and a sergeant for each of the 3 different shifts as the first line supervisor, and the 4th lieutenant was our executive officer, which is the position that Lieutenant Shepard is in. So upon going to 12-hour shifts, we now only have 2 shifts, a 7A to 7P and a 7P to 7A. So there is not a requirement to have 3 lieutenants. We actually, right now during the trial year, one of our lieutenants has been acting in the position of a sergeant as the first line supervisor, but also doing his duties as a lieutenant. He happens to be our jail administrator. So he has all those responsibilities, plus he also assists in firearms instruction and qualifications and things like that. So with this switch, then we would have 2 lieutenants, 1 for each of the shifts, who each would supervise 2 sergeants upon this change to 4 sergeants. And that's because there's a lieutenant, then 2 sergeants, because there's 2 platoons of officers on each time frame or each shift. And the one set while they're working, their complement on the same shift or the same time frame are always off. So there's a sergeant and 4 lieutenant or 4 patrolmen that are always working together. When they're on their days off, then their complement is working with the sergeant and 4 patrolmen. And then on the night shift, there's the same thing up there. So the need had switched from the need for a shift commander to 3 shifts down to 2 because of the switch to 12 hours.
All right.
Do you have anything to add, Lieutenant Shepard?
The only thing I'd like to add is just by us flattening, in a way, we're flattening out the structure a little bit of the department. At the time when we had 3 shifts, lieutenant would supervise a sergeant, who would supervise 5 to 6 patrolmen, and their days off rotated. Now with the workings, the change of the schedule, the sergeant and 4 patrolmen had the same days off. So really, there's more than likely going to be a supervisor working, and the lieutenant is just an added layer. Also, it helps with our lieutenants to be doing some more administrative work than just working on day-to-day operations of the individual shifts.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That was very informative.
Thank you.
Anyone have questions about this piece of legislation?
Bridget, I was
Yes.
just curious. What sort of impact does this have financially? Does it change the budget a great deal with different, I don't know all the particular salaries and whatnot, and we're doing a lot of trading off of different positions, be it sergeant, lieutenant. Does it impact the budget tremendously or not?
It is a savings of approximately, with salary and benefits, $13,000 to the city.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Bridget,
Yes.
as a retired member of the best department in the West, I wholeheartedly agree with this, and I commend Chief Upperman and Lieutenant Shepard for putting this together and a lot of research, and I think it's going to be very beneficial for our city. Thank you.
Excellent.
Bridget?
Yes.
So I agree with Councilman Minnick that this looks like it is a fantastic thing to allow us to be more visible and to save a little bit of money and to provide the 12-hour shifts that our police desire. My question would be to Chief and incoming Chief. So I noticed there's not a union representative here tonight. I don't know if we offered a invitation. I just want to confirm that the union is on board with this.
We invited them to attend the meeting, but both Representative Mahalik and King just wanted us to relay that they agree with this because it was actually their idea to get the 12-hour shifts, and they understand that by us doing this, it necessitates the shift change, or the change in structure, because we went to the 12-hour shifts.
Perfect. Thank you.
If I could just build just a little bit on that again, right from the very beginning, I had sent them a memo or an email advising them of some of the things that were going to definitely be necessary if we go to 12s, and then also some things for them to think about before they pushed real hard for this particular change in scheduling. And one of the things that was kind of deemed by me to be a deal breaker was that we would have to do this, that there would, keep in mind, if we do this, that you're going to lose one of the higher, the next highest ranking position, but you will still have an opportunity for promotion because there'll be an extra sergeant. And that's how badly they wanted it. And they understood the reasoning behind it, because as I explained with what Lieutenant Wickus right now is doing as the lieutenant who is acting as a sergeant, he has the first line supervision plus the other, and that's not fair to him. But it's also not fair to the city that if you put a lieutenant in a sergeant's position, that you're only, you're paying them the $13,700 extra for doing a job for a lesser rank. So you wouldn't want to do that either. So, and if that amount is the wages plus the city's pension costs, Medicare and workers' comp altogether, the actual difference in just the wages line item is about $11,336 that we're saving by removing a lieutenant and adding a sergeant.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else have any other questions on this? Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to put this up for third and read and final passage next week's meeting. Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
I will vote yes, and Greg?
Yes.
All right. Well, that's all we had for you, Chief Upperman and Lieutenant Shepard. You're welcome to stay if you'd like to, but thank you very much for your time tonight. It was very helpful.
Thank you so much for considering this and listening to our reasoning behind it and agreeing with it.
Of course.
I agree. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Healthy.
Okay, the next item is ordinance 2033, the improvements to Thomas Lane Park. Monica or Mary Kay?
Thank you very much for allowing us to discuss this evening. As you may recall, back in March, we were before City Council to dedicate this space. At that time, we presented some of the ideas that we had. Monica Jordan, our community planner, had been very successful in securing one of the two grants that she applied for. And the second grant was not awarded because the state capital funding just wasn't assigned this year. So we're working with a $50,000 budget, and we're able to keep the plan as close to what was originally presented when we were talking about the dedication. So we're looking at a scope that includes mostly the same items for this green space, the Story Road, Thomas Lane green space. We're looking at an asphalt pathway, trash receptacle, 2 benches, a safety light, and there's also going to be some land work required for proper drainage as we put an asphalt trail through the middle of this property. We want to make sure that it's not stopping the flow of water. So there'll be some land restoration involved as well. So our bids came back and we're asking to award this project to RJ Platten. The references were checked and they've done excellent work, not only in the city of Rocky River at Rocky River Park and Elmwood Park, but for the city of Cleveland. The Cleveland's landscape architect has given us a very positive referral, as well as our own Nelson Park. So they were the contractor that worked for us there. We are happy to award this to RJ Platten. They were $1,860.50 lower than the next lowest bid. There were 6 bids. It was a great collection of contractors, and we are looking forward to this green space improvement. I think the one thing that has changed since we discussed this in March that might be the most prominent is the fence location has moved off of Story Road. So as you're looking at the site plan before you, at the left would be Story Road. The fence has been moved back somewhat away from the sidewalk. That was at the residents' request, adjacent to the green space. And the benches have moved slightly to the south or to Thomas Lane cul-de-sac. We have 1 trash receptacle that we like having located at Thomas Lane, so our service personnel don't have to stop on Story Road to empty and maintain that. Plus, it is able to be located near both of these benches if we have them located and situated near each other. So the 4 trees that we're planting are also part of the scope. That hasn't changed. The asphalt trail We just don't have the funding to do the nice porous concrete pavement that we were going to consider if we had all the funds. But it is in part, for the most part, very similar to what we have presented in the past to not only yourselves, but the Planning Commission has approved this particular site and was reviewed by Parks and Rec earlier this year as well.
Did design and planning review it after the change of the fence?
The Planning Commission did approve it after as to the location of the fence, correct?
Mayor, Director, Mr. Burns presented several questions. Have they been complied with?
Thank you, President Pro Tem. I did respond to Mr. Burns. He was very generous in offering a picnic table to the city to place as a donated item. And we're just at a point in the project where the scope has been assigned to the contractor and we're ready to move forward. We have a very limited budget, and I'm just not confident that we could put in another concrete pad. So each bench is going to have its own concrete pad adjacent to the asphalt trail that it will be affixed to. And in addition to the funding limits, I'm not sure that we would have the time. So at this point, but we do plan on revisiting this park with future grants and future grant opportunities. And so there's always opportunities in the future. We will keep that generous offer in mind as we move forward and search out additional grant funding opportunities.
Is Mr. Burns on here? Because in the one email I noticed, he said that the agenda wasn't open at the start of tonight's meeting. The agenda still wasn't on the website. It's on there now. So I don't know if he was trying to get logged on or if anyone got him the information to get on.
I was able to get him the information to get on. I don't think I saw him on unless you have seen him, Liz.
No, I haven't. I have the screen up here and I don't see anyone trying to enter. And just for the website, there's some technical things that it needs updated, basically, is the bottom line. So sometimes when I upload documents, they don't actually upload. So I did repost that. I got an email. So, but he is on the list, I believe, to get the Friday packets, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Well, in his absence, Director Costello, as Councilman Minnick had alluded, he had several questions, and I just want to, given that they were sent to all of council and the mayor, make sure that these are all taken care of because they sound quite serious. So the first question is, and I guess I'll answer all three or give you all three because they're very related. Does the current park proposal comply with the ADA? In view of the decision to remove ADA playground equipment from the plan, which equipment was promised free to the city by the developer on multiple occasions, as well as the city's recorded objection to adding an ADA picnic bench, it would seem necessary that there could be an ADA complaint that we would need to deal with. And it says that if the government determines that the city's plan is non-compliant, what will the city need to do to bring it compliant with ADA? And then in order to avoid the complications, would it be simpler and more cost effective to designate a handicap parking space, add ADA compliant picnic bench, a piece of equipment? And I believe that's where his recommendation for him personally to donate a picnic table to the site. And I just wanted to make sure that we're covering our bases here because I know that ADA issues can be quite serious. And I think in the grant, we had said it will be ADA compliant.
And it is, Mary Kay had talked to Kim Kerber, our engineer, to review it, and she's deemed it ADA compliant. Is that correct, Mary Kay?
That is correct.
All right, thank you both. I appreciate having that confirmation.
You're welcome.
And then I just have one comment pertaining to his offering of donating of a picnic table. And I would say that I would be interested entertaining that once the grant's completed and the contractors get everything done and we're moved past that point. and to get a little more info as far as the specs on it and how big it would be. If we could find a spot for it, I would be interested in still entertaining that, once they're done.
Yeah, as Mary Kay mentioned, we appreciate his offer and his interest in this throughout. We're excited about what we're going to be doing there, and we think that, and I know Monica could, probably comment on this a little as well. We anticipate using this, the success that we have here and going for other grants, other opportunities to add to the green space. As it is now, it's kind of it's somewhat of a, for lack of a better term, an eyesore as you come into the city, and we're going to address that and always could constantly be looking at other opportunities, be it through residents, other grant sources, or the city itself to add to it. So this is just the first step.
I've heard from a lot of residents in the area too that are excited about it, especially just to be able to get from neighborhood to neighborhood over here. It's not an ideal state now, so they're excited about just the kind of easy use this could bring to, both sides of Story Road. So.
Thank you for bringing that up. It's always been in our minds an opportunity to connect neighborhoods and to offer people a healthy, not alternative, but an additional walking trail for their walking pathways. And as Monica Jordan is present this evening, she is going to be looking at future grant opportunities. The neighbor's suggestion to move the neighbors on Story Road to move the fencing back really offers us a great opportunity to make this a gateway, as been alluded to this evening. So we know that we'll be back in this space with future improvements because it lends itself to opportunities. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Mary Kay, why is this, did you want this as an emergency if we have until March to spend the grant money?
Well, we want to move forward with RJ Platten as the authorized contractor, and in order to get him started on the project. We are confident that his bid is the lowest and most responsive.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And this is Monica Jordan here.
Hey, Monica.
Also, we want to avoid hitting any of the super cold weather that may prohibit construction, and the benches and trash receptacle may take upwards of a month or two to be delivered, as we experienced with our recent streetscape project. So that's why we want to get rolling and give authorization as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for getting this grant. This is going to be a nice little park now. So I'd like to make a motion to have this ordinance on third read and final passage at our next meeting on Monday. Brian?
Yes.
Bill?
You're gonna pass it on second reading, correct, Bridget?
Oh, I thought this was on second read.
I believe it's on
first. It was on first read. I'm sorry. You're right. I apologize. Yes, I'd like to pass it on second read.
Okay.
Brian?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
I will vote yes. And Greg?
Yes.
All right. So the last thing to discuss for me today is Resolution 2013, the 2021 tax rate resolution. Greg or Mayor, do you want to talk about this at all?
I can speak on this. Can you all hear me again?
Yes.
Okay. So earlier this year, council passed the 2021 tax budget. This is a companion piece to this, or to that legislation. It is time sensitive, so in order for the county to certify the rates, again, nothing has changed from 2020 to 2021. In order to let the county, give the county enough time to process the documentation that they need to process on their end, they are requesting that this legislation be passed by the end of the month, and we would ask council to do that per their letter.
Okay, end of the month. All right, so we would have to pass it next time then. Okay. Well, does anyone have any questions?
I don't. Thank you, Greg, for those key words. Nothing has changed.
You're welcome.
All right, then I'm going to make a motion that we pass this on second read and final passage next week. Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
President, I would request a letter from the administration to that effect. I don't believe we have a letter in the file now on this issue.
I don't.
What from the county doesn't suffice, Mr. Minnick?
We typically get a letter from the administration for this one. Well, any emergency, really.
We'll have one up to you tomorrow. Is that, would that, Councilman Minnick, if we have a letter to you by tomorrow, would that suffice?
That'd be fine, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. All right, so pending receiving the letter, I would like to have this on second read and final passage. Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
I will vote yes. Greg?
Yes.
All right. Finance Committee will conclude at 7:59.
Great job, Bridget.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you. Okay, boards and commission reports. Brian,
Nothing today.
Maureen,
Nothing, thank you.
Sarah,
I have confirmed that Superintendent Wagner and Treasurer Sperling will be coming to speak to us about the upcoming school levy on the 28th, our next committee meeting. They'll be giving us a 10-minute overview of what to expect. And I suspect that we might want to start thinking about doing a resolution in support of the levy. So that's something that we should discuss next week as well. Thank you.
thank you, Sarah. Bridget, anything?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Greg?
Nothing.
Okay, the agenda for the Planning Design Commission would be this Wednesday at 7 o'clock. 4 docket items, 21405 Lorraine Road. Review a plan for signage, exterior renovations, parking facilities, refuse storage, and fencing. 21593 to 21939 Lorraine Road. Review a plan for new construction and refer to council for review for zoning change per section 14, article 4 of the city charter. 18900 Lorraine Road. Review a plan for refuse storage and fencing. 22250 Lorraine Road. Review a plan for signage, exterior renovations, and fencing. Go to roundtable. Brian, anything for roundtable?
I do not have anything tonight. Thanks.
Maureen?
Bill, I was just curious with the meeting Wednesday. Is there something on the docket for the fence on Valley Forge as well?
BZA, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That was scheduled for tonight.
Yeah, it was tonight.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought it was. And Mayor, is that the same issue that, do you know, looking back, that was addressed in December?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay, so the person is just reapplying again?
That's correct.
Okay, okay, I'll have to find out. We can talk tomorrow so I can find out the results of that. 'Cause
Okay.
and then just in general, I've gotten a few complaints recently about Morton Park. And I don't quite know what to do. You know, the complaints, they're valid complaints, but I don't know how we address them. Just where there's inappropriate behavior and language and whatnot on the basketball courts, to the point that other people and families that are going through the park, or like one dad was trying to play catch with his son, and he basically had to put up with just a lot of foul language, use of horrible terms and whatnot taking place on the basketball court. I don't know, how do we monitor things like that? And I've gotten this complaint from multiple people.
It would, it would be a police matter. I know the police have been down there in the past for similar behavior, and if it's offensive or rises to Tim, and you can jump in here too, but I think if it's, coarse and offensive language, it could rise to disorderly conduct.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, the problem is it has to rise to a level of a crime before the police can really do anything. And
Right.
being, and unfortunately being a jerk or obnoxious isn't a crime. And so sometimes it's difficult and it puts the police in a bad spot. But like the mayor said, you would probably have the possibility of it rising to a level of disorderly conduct if it's language that's completely inappropriate. So I would advise them to call the police, because it's something that the police really probably need to observe. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, that's kind of how I've responded to these people, that it's very hard to catch people at the moment they're using the offensive language. But I also sympathize with, this one gentleman, he purposely bought near the park, and now he like almost has to monitor when his kids are outside because of what they're hearing, so.
But the police presence could really deter, nuisance behavior, even if it's not criminal, the presence alone.
Right. If people feel there's a problem or a concern, I would call the police, and they can, they can observe it, or they might, they may not just, they might have a tactic where they, come from the other angle or another side and listen. So, if it's an ongoing problem, they may have other ways to address it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And then one other thing, just in general, is anybody else having trouble with voices cutting in and out during our Zoom meetings, or is it just my router at my house?
I don't have any issues.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
I don't either.
All right. Okay.
They just
Maureen, you might want to get I just had to get an Wi-Fi extender. There's a corner of my house that is just up and down weak. So you might just want to invest in one of those.
Okay, a Wi-Fi extender. Yeah.
Wi-Fi extender.
If you guys watched me during this meeting, it's crazy. I'm like going on 3 different things, trying to get good reception. So, okay, a Wi-Fi extender. Thanks, Liz.
Yep.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Cheryl, anything?
Yes, so I was reached out to a couple of times in the last 2 to 3 months by residents making complaints about the free cycle group that is coming up in Fairview Park. And I should start by saying that I freely support the idea of free cycling, which is basically you place things out on your tree lawn and they're free, right? So why send it to the landfill when it's valuable to someone else perhaps? But what this group is doing is placing their items on the tree lawn the weekend before bulk pickup on Saturday, Sunday, and then they're sitting there Monday. And I guess the concern is, we do have an ordinance for when our garbage is supposed to be on the tree lawn. And, there are some residents in some neighborhoods that are now seeing weekends worth of garbage, or I guess one man's trash is another man's treasure idea. And they're just not pleased. So I reached out to you, Mayor, to say I did reach out to the person who's coordinating that. and just reminded her that we do have ordinances stating when you can place your trash onto the tree lawns. She was semi-receptive to that in terms of, she'll let everyone know so that they can decide at their own peril whether or not they want to be cited, but not necessarily willing to recommend that they place it out Sunday night only. So I think that's just something we need to keep an eye on. Obviously, we went to a 1 day a week for the entire city trash pickup for a reason. And I don't know how many residents are doing this or how widespread it is, but it's something we might just want to keep an eye on.
What's the name of the group?
It's Free Cycle or Upcycle. It's a trend, like that's the name of what they're doing. I don't know if it's actually the name of their group, but
They put it on the community Facebook page, and then there is like a Fairview Park Recycle Upcycle Facebook page. It's like Fairview Park and Rocky River or something like that.
So it's Free Cycle. I don't even know. I'm trying to like Google I've never even heard of this.
I can send you some information on it, Greg, or try to send you the group that it is, like the actual Facebook group. And again, I totally support keeping things out of the landfill when we are able to do so. But I think having garbage on the tree lawn for 3 days or however you would want to define it is probably too much.
Yeah, I
so just
agree with
something
you,
to
Sarah.
monitor.
It's a problem. I agree.
If they're big on Facebook, we should tell them or educate them how to use like that marketplace a little better, or some sort of like, pick up and drop, drop off type of a thing, so they don't have to do that. That would be.
There's a free
sense.
There's a whole spreadsheet where you can list your name, your address, and the kind of things you're setting out on your tree lawn. So if I'm looking for X item, I can go to the spreadsheet and see if anybody has it that weekend.
Yeah,
I mean,
I see. I'm on freecycle.org, and there is a Fairview Park group. I don't know. It lists a bunch of random cities that I guess are all affiliated with this freecycle.org.
Yeah.
It's a great concept. I agree with you, Sarah. I mean, the issue is that someone puts it out on Wednesday, and then people, they may think, well, it could start a trend of not following the code, which is a concern. And I don't know if there's we do have something. I don't know how we can regulate it, of course, but besides encouraging people to follow what the code is, if somebody, and I'm semi-familiar with it, but if somebody has an item they want to get rid of, can they say, I'll put it in my porch or something? I mean, I know some items are easier to place there than others. Do people do that? I'll leave it up for porch pickup.
Just enjoying and just see what it's all about.
I think part of the thing was that people would just drive around. The first time they did it was everyone put their addresses on there, and then that Saturday morning, people kind of drove around and checked it out and took what they wanted and moved on.
Yeah.
Like an organized garbage picking almost.
That was a few months ago, right? That was more organized.
Yeah, this just started. This just is maybe 2 months old or so, I think.
Right. And so now it's when you're cleaning out your house on a Thursday night, you put it out there. Some of the folks, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do it in conjunction with bulk pickup, or at least that's been the pattern. And again, I am all for it. I just think, if we can get this group of people to do it in combination with our ordinances, which say you can have them out there Sunday night. I mean, we don't need it out there all weekend. If you want it that bad, drive around Sunday evening, right? It's just food for thought, something that I see as being a problem that might pop up in the next couple of months.
Okay, well, thanks for bringing it up and talking to them as well.
And that's all. Thank you.
Anything else, Sarah?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Bridget?
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Greg?
Nothing.
Liz?
I do not have anything.
And I have nothing. And thank you, everybody, for participating. Have a nice evening.
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.